Vanishing Folklore and Beliefs.
Seven-headed serpent from Basque legends. Public domain reading, circa 1879. The Seven-Headed Serpent. Like many others in the world, there was a mother with her 3 sons. The eldest said to her that he wished to go from country to country until he should find a situation on as a servant, and that she should give him a cake. He sets out. While he's going through a forest, he meets with an old woman who asks him for a morsel of his cake. He says to her, "No, I would prefer to throw it into the muddy clay." The lad then asks her if she knows of a servant's place. She says, "No." He then goes on from forest to forest until the night overtakes him. Then there comes to him a bear. The bear says to him, "Ant of the earth, who has given you permission to come here?" "Who should give it to me? I have taken it myself." And with that, the bear devours him. The second son asks his mother to give him a cake, for he wishes to go on as a servant like his brother. She gives him one, and he goes away, just like his brother. He meets with the same old woman who says to him, "Please give me a bit of your cake. I prefer to throw it into this muddy clay rather than give you any of it." He then asks her if she knows of a servant's place. She replies, "No." And on he goes, on and on and on. Deeper into the forest, he meets with the same huge bear. He says to him, "Ant of the earth, who has given you permission to come here?" "Who should give it to me? I have taken it myself." And with that, the bear devours him. The third son asks his mother to give him a cake, for he wishes to go off, just like his other brothers. He sets off and walks on and on and on, and he finds the same old woman. She asks him, "Where are you going?" "I want a situation as a servant." "Give me a little bit of your cake." "Here, take the whole as well if you like." No, a little bit is enough for me." And he asks her if she knows of a servant's place, and she says to him, "Yes, you will find it far beyond the forest, but you will meet an enemy here. But I will give you a stick. With the touch of this stick, you may kill the enemy." He goes on, and there comes to him a bear, which says to him, "Ant of the ground, who has given you permission to come here?" "Who has given it to me? I have taken it myself." The lad gives him a little blow with the stick, and the bear gives a howl. "Spare my life, spare my life." But he said to him, "Tell me then, how many you are in this place where you live?" "7 of us." He gives him another blow, and then the bear falls stark dead. He goes on until he finds a palace. He goes in and asks, "Do you want a servant?" They say to him, Yes, our shepherd has gone away, and we want one." They send him to bed, and the next day they give him a fine flock of sheep, and tell him not to go to the mountain because it's full of large and savage animals, and to pay great attention because the sheep always want to go there. The next day, he goes off with his sheep, and all of them run away to this mountain because the herbage was very good there. Our shepherd had fortunately not gotten his stick, for at that moment there appeared before him another terrible bear. "Who has given you permission to come here?" I have taken it myself. I will eat you. He approaches, but our shepherd gives him a little blow with his stick, and he begins to cry, spare my life. Tell me then how many you are where you live. We were 7 yesterday, but today we are only 6 with me. He gives him another blow, and he falls stark dead. And the shepherd hides him as well as he can in the hedge, and then returns home with his sheep, well filled. That evening the sheep gave him a great deal of milk, and he made fine cheeses with it. The master and mistress were delighted to have such a servant. The next day he goes off again, and as soon as he opened the stable door, the sheep start to run off again to the good herbage, and the same thing happens again. And at the end of the moment there appears a bear, who asks him why he comes into these parts. Our shepherd with his stick gives him a little blow on the neck, and the bear begins to cry, I, spare my life. He asks him, how many are there where you live? We were 7, but at present we are 5 with me. And he gives him another little blow, and he falls stiff and dead. And in 5 days he kills all the bears in the same manner. And when he saw the last one come, he was frightened to see a beast so immense and so fearful, and which came dragging himself along. He was so ancient. He says to him, why have you come into these parts? And at the same time the shepherd gave him a little blow. He begins to cry out to him to spare his life, and that he would give him great riches and beautiful apartments, and that they should live together. He spares his life, and sends the flock back to the house. They go through hedges and hedges, and through the fairies' holes. At last they arrive at a fine palace. There they find the table set out with every kind of food and drink. There were also servants to attend unto them, and there were also horses already saddled, and with harnesses of gold and silver. There was nothing but riches there. After having passed some days there like that, our shepherd said to himself that it would be better to be master and owner of all that fortune. So he gives a blow to the bear and kills him stark dead. After having dressed himself splendidly, he gets on horseback and goes from country to country, and comes to a city and hears the bells sounding. And all the people are in excitement. He asks, what's the matter? They tell him that there in the mountain is a serpent with 7 heads, and that one person must be given to him every day as a sacrifice. This serpent has 7 heads, and the people must draw lots to know who must be given to the serpent. The lot had fallen onto the king's daughter, and everyone was in grief and distress, and all were going with the king at their head to accompany her to the mountain. They left her at the foot of the mountain, and she went on, mounting alone to the top. This young man goes after her and says to her, I will accompany you. The king's daughter says to him, turn back, I beg you. I do not wish you to risk your life because of me. He says to her, have no fear for me. I have a charm of might. At the same time, they hear an extraordinary noise and hissing. Slowly they see the great serpent coming on. The serpent seemed as if it was made of lightning. Our man with his stick gave the serpent a little blow on one of its heads, and one by one, the 7 heads fall off. And our princess is saved. In order to go to the mountains, she was dressed in her most beautiful robes. She had 7 of them on. He took a little piece from each of the 7 robes, and he likewise took the tongue from each of the heads of the dragon, and put them into these little pieces of silk. He then took the king's daughter onto his horse and descended the mountain. The daughter went home to her father, and our gentleman to the bear's house. The news that the seven-headed serpent is killed spread quickly. The king had promised his daughter and half of his kingdom to the man who would have killed the serpent. The serpent, as we have said, was killed. 3 charcoal burners passing by on the mountains see the serpent and take the 7 heads and go to the king, asking him to have the reward. But as there were 3 of them, they were in a great difficulty, and were sent away until the council was assembled to see if any other person would come forward to say who had killed the dragon. As nobody appeared, there was going to be a lot drawn to see who would be the husband of the king's daughter. There was great excitement that day, and there was also a great stir when this young man arrived in the city. He asked what it is. They tell him what it is. He was splendidly dressed and had a magnificent horse. He asks to see the king, and as he was handsomely dressed, he is received immediately. He asks if the 7 heads of the serpent had 7 tongues in them, and they cannot find them. Then he shows the 7 tongues. He sends 2 for the princess's 7 robes, and he shows the 7 pieces that were wanting, as well as the 7 tongues. When they see all of that, they all exclaim, "This is the true savior of the king's daughter." And by then they were married. The 3 deceitful charcoal burners, after having been dressed in a coat of sulfur, were burnt alive in the midst of the marketplace for having deceived the king. Our gentleman and lady lived very happily, sometimes at her father's house, and at other times at the bear's house. And, as they had lived, they died happily. Then I was there, and now I am here. If you enjoyed this reading, please subscribe to this channel and help support it and help it to grow. Thank you.
Vanishing folklore and beliefs.